We moved here for peace. A quiet corner tucked behind a sleepy highway, promised by brochures that said things like community spirit and sanctuary living. My wife, combat boots still dusty from a classified mission 48 hours before, just wanted a place to jog, tend the garden, maybe raise chickens. I wanted fiber internet and fewer sirens. We got golf carts painted matte black with HSD stenciled on the sides and HOA volunteers acting like mall cops on steroids. The neighborhood felt off, for carts lined up outside the clubhouse like budget SWAT units, complete with zip-tie blue lights and garden gnome decals. One had a cup holder mounted next to what looked like a fake radar gun. At first, I thought it was a joke until they tried to issue us a warning for walking our dog off-leash. On our own front lawn, we kept to ourselves. My wife organized a garage like a forward operating base. I buried myself in back-end code and tried to ignore Karen Brewster, our clipboard-wielding HOA president, who introduced herself with laminated credentials and a smile that said, "I've never been told no and don't plan to start now." She handed us a rule book. It said things like grass may not exceed 2.75 inches, and residents must not appear intimidating during recreational activity. I asked what that meant. She said, "You'll know it when you see it." I didn't know then that a man would pull a gun on my wife over a missing jogging badge. I didn't know she'd give him a chance to back down, and that he wouldn't take it. But I should have known something was coming. You don't plant seeds in dry earth unless you're ready for a fight. Let us know in the comments where you're watching from. This one's just getting started. It started on a Tuesday, just past sunrise. My wife pulled on her hoodie, tied her sneakers, and went out for her usual loop around the block. 10 minutes in, my phone buzzed with motion alert. I figured it was a package, maybe the neighbor's cat. But when I checked the camera feed, my blood went cold. 2 black golf carts, HSD patrol, parked diagonally across the street. My wife stood still, hands slightly raised. In front of her, a guy in his 50s, pot-belly straining against a tactical vest, held a pistol like he was in a bad action movie. Sideways grip, finger twitching, eyes bulging with self-importance. I bolted out the door. By the time I hit the front yard, 2 more officers had arrived, standing behind like confused backup dancers. My wife, calm as ever, breathed slow, eyes locked on the weapon. She wasn't scared. She was calculating. I saw the micro-movement in her hand, just enough for me to know. If he twitched wrong, he was going down hard. The guy shouted about suspicious behavior, about how she was running in a restricted HOA zone without identification. I remember thinking, who the hell runs with a badge? My wife asked, steady and low, "Are you law enforcement?" He said, and I quote, "We're HOA police. That's higher than city cops here." That's when I saw the corner of her mouth twitch. That twitch is never good. It's not joy. It's restraint slipping. She gave him one last out. "Sir, I'm going to ask you to lower your weapon for your own safety." He didn't. I blinked, and the gun was on the pavement. Blinked again, and the man was face down on the asphalt, pinned in a hold so clean it probably had a NATO designation. And she still wasn't even breathing hard. The real cops showed up 5 minutes later. Sirens, cruisers, the whole bit. The HOA squad, they were shouting about assault, resisting neighborhood authority, and protecting the integrity of our streets. But then one officer took one look at my wife, paused, and nodded. He asked for her ID. She didn't hand him a driver's license. She handed him something else. Something small, laminated, government-issued. He read it, looked back at the HOA guys, and said one sentence I'll never forget. "Ma'am, you're good to go." Just like that. No further questions. No citations. No warnings. Karen Brewster showed up 10 minutes too late, clipboard in hand, sunglasses on like she was trying to channel military command presence. She took one look at her disarmed captain, sitting on the curb with a bruised ego and an actual arm sling, and her jaw clenched so tight I thought she might crack a molar. That's when she declared war, not just against my wife, but against both of us. She didn't yell, didn't throw a tantrum. She just gave a polite nod, turned a watching crowd, and announced an emergency HOA meeting scheduled for 7 p.m. to address the violent assault against a decorated officer of the Home Safety Division. Decorated. Officer. We weren't laughing. Not yet, but the absurdity was dripping. By 6:30, neighbors were dragging out lawn chairs. Someone set up a live stream. A few even brought coolers, muttering that this was better than reality TV. Karen was pacing the clubhouse like a dictator prepping her State of the Union. Meanwhile, my wife was home on the porch. Tea in hand, boots up, watching the stream on a teenager's GoPro feed. She looked more amused and angry. And that, right there, should have terrified Karen. The emergency HOA meeting started 2 minutes late. For Karen Brewster, that was basically an act of anarchy. She marched up to the podium like she was delivering a wartime address. Khaki vest buttoned tight, Bluetooth headset crooked on one ear, and a whiteboard behind her labeled Emergency Response Strategy. Someone had drawn stick figures. One labeled Threat Actor. Another, sunglasses, giant biceps, labeled Heroic Defense. I almost choked. Karen cleared her throat. Neighbors, she began. It is with a heavy heart that I report a violent assault on one of our peacekeepers. Peacekeepers. Like we were living in a sci-fi dystopia instead of a cul-de-sac with seasonal bake-offs. She gestured toward the guy my wife had disarmed. Captain Clipboard, now sitting on stage with his arm in a sling and a pout that screamed dairy-induced regret. Captain Fredrickson, she intoned, was injured while defending our community from a suspicious trespasser with a known history of aggression. My hand shot up. Karen called on me. Eyes narrowed. Yes, Mr. Owens? What's the known history? Because I live with her, and unless the rooster's been throwing punches, I don't know what you're talking about. Laughter. Even a few claps. Karen didn't crack. It was a miscommunication, she said. We had reason to believe she was casing Holmes. She was wearing a hoodie and listening to a true crime podcast. She said it like that was proof of criminal intent. At that exact moment, someone wheeled out a laptop. Then another. 5 different neighbors started streaming body cam footage. Footage Karen didn't know had been uploaded to a shared drive. There it was. My wife, calm, jogging, earbuds in, the HOA cart blocking her path, the gun, the disarm, the takedown, and Karen's whole story? Gone. In under 2 minutes. When the footage ended, the clubhouse was dead silent. Not out of fear, out of realization. Karen's narrative hadn't just unraveled. It collapsed like a cheap patio chair under too much ego. Someone in the back muttered, she should be running the HOA. Laughter. Nervous but growing. Karen snapped. Slammed her clipboard down. That footage is unauthorized, she shouted. It doesn't represent the full context. What context? Someone shot back. The part where your team plays dress-up and points guns at joggers? It was over. The spell was broken. People started asking real questions. Why were their dudes funding golf carts and tactical vests? Who approved the use of weapons? What training did the Home Safety Division actually have? Karen stammered, offered a mess of legal-sounding nonsense. But no answers. That night, under the dim HOA-approved street lamps, I felt something shift. A neighbor waved at me. For the first time since we moved in, without looking over his shoulder first. Back home, my wife was sipping tea like it was just another Tuesday. You're famous now. I said, I saw, she replied, smirking. Someone made a gif of me disarming him. Over 2,000 shares. The crickets chirped louder than the HOA allowed. The quiet was strange, but not unwelcome. Then she said it, casual as if she were reading a grocery list. She's not going to back down. Karen? Nope, my wife said, draining her cup. She's going to escalate. She was right. 3 days later, we got a certified letter. No return address. Just the HOA seal and a long list of violations. Excessive aggression. Intimidating presence. Running with hostile energy. The total? $1,470 in fines. Due immediately. My wife flipped the letter over, jotted down a list of names, and said quietly she just escalated to the wrong level. By the end of the week, Karen had passed 6 new HOA bylaws. None of them were voted on. None filed with the city. One required visible ID tags when walking outdoors. Another allowed on-site enforcement by HSD officers. The worst? A clause that let them expel residents who disrupted communal peace and harmony. Expel, like this was a private college. And Karen was the dean of delusion. She still thought she had the upper hand, that we'd just pack up and leave, like everyone else before us. What she didn't realize, what she couldn't comprehend, was who she was dealing with. My wife didn't just train soldiers. She dismantled insurgencies. Systems. She was fluent in chaos. And this neighborhood war? This was amateur hour. First came a restraining order, filed by Karen herself. It accused my wife of psychological warfare and tactical manipulation. She even submitted edited video clips to support it. But the judge had already seen the uncut footage sent by concerned neighbors. The case was tossed in under 3 minutes. Didn't stop Karen. More fines. More threatening letters. HOA patrols started circling our house hourly. One guy pointed a radar gun at our mailbox. Another crouched behind a shrub with binoculars. These were grown adults playing soldier on a street lined with wind chimes and rose bushes. That's when my wife made a call. I only heard one side, a few clipped answers. Then, thank you, I'll handle the rest. She hung up and turned to me. We're on the record now, she said. The next morning, we started digging. Public records, property filing, financial disclosures, all technically accessible. But nobody had ever bothered to look. What we found made my stomach turn and my wife smile. It wasn't just petty power Karen was clinging to. It was a cover-up. We found it buried in HOA budget statements no one ever questioned. A landscaping company, Verdant Horizon LLC, had been paid nearly $180,000 over 3 years. For fountains, paved roads, garden beautification. Problem? The company didn't exist. At least, not outside a P.O. box and a ghost website made with a free template. We checked the payment dates against our security footage. No work. No trucks. No fountains. Unless you count the rusted bird bath behind the clubhouse. Digging deeper, my wife uncovered the kicker. Verdant Horizon was a shell company. Registered to a cousin of, wait for it, Captain Clipboard. The same guy who pointed a gun at her on day 8. It was sloppy, but it was enough. She compiled everything into a clean, time-stamped file and sent to someone I didn't know she still had access to, a federal auditor. Within 48 hours, the HOA board received a formal records request. Karen responded by padlocking the clubhouse and posting a member's only sign in Comic Sans. One of her goons stood outside with a leaf blower slung like a weapon. Meanwhile, neighbors started talking, asking where their dues had really gone, why the public gardens were just weeds behind a dumpster, why the fountains listed in the annual report only existed on Photoshop. We helped. Quietly, flyers slipped under doors. No accusations, just bullet points and receipts. Karen panicked, went live on the HOA's Facebook page, called a smear campaign, sat in front of a giant American flag, wearing a blazer that didn't fit, referring to herself as Madam President. She claimed the audit was fake, that my wife was running a domestic psychological op to destabilize community leadership. That's when my wife got the message. For encrypted words, need to verify status. 5 minutes later, her phone rang. The voice on the other end of the call? Calm, direct, a former commander, not civilian. He didn't ask if she was okay. He asked if she needed backup, not boots-on-the-ground backup, the kind that shows up in unmarked envelopes, signed in triplicate, and filed where power can't hide behind a clipboard. She said no, politely, but the implication was clear. Karen had just triggered an escalation far above her pay grade. The next morning, my wife printed a letter, folded it clean, marked the envelope Karen Brewster. It wasn't a threat, wasn't a demand. It was a cease and desist. Signed, dated, federal letterhead. At exactly 9:01 a.m., a courier in mirrored sunglasses and a windbreaker with a government seal hand delivered it. No words, just eye contact and a subtle nod. According to a neighbor, Karen stood frozen on her porch for a full minute. Then she scrambled back inside, clutching the envelope like it was radioactive. The patrol stopped overnight. No more golf carts. No more fake radar guns. No more HSD cosplayers cruising past our house with clipboards and fanny packs. But the silence? It wasn't peace. It was regrouping. My wife treated the pause like a mission window. She launched Operation Curb Appeal. That's what she called it. With a straight face. Like it was just another field op minus the camo. Flyers. Clean. Bullet pointed. No drama. Just facts. HOA funds traced to fake vendors. Unfiled bylaws. Family members on the payroll. Illegally issued fines. Then came the signs. Professionally printed. Neon backgrounds. Slogans like, "Smile, you're being fined for blinking." Or, "HOA equals helping oligarchs abuse." One had a cartoon of Karen as a gavel with "Obey or pay" in comic book font. By day 3, 20 lawns had them, and more were going up. Karen issued another bulletin. Nobody read it. It was a city council meeting that broke the last thread. A few bold residents, led by Mrs. Hillman, retired lawyer, certified powerhouse, petitioned for a formal investigation into the HOA's legitimacy. Enough signatures were gathered to force a special hearing. Karen showed up 10 minutes late in a wrinkled blazer, clutching a binder thick enough to stun livestock. She brought her captain, too, who stood behind her like an aging bodyguard who got lost on his way to a Renaissance fair. My wife wore jeans and a black T-shirt. No speech. No entourage. Just a slim manila folder. The council president, stoic, unimpressed, opened with, "We're here to determine whether the HOA has operated within legal bounds." Karen launched into a monologue about unity, discipline, and preserving suburban values. She blamed us, the audit, outside influence, and even claimed we'd infiltrated neighborhood morale with paramilitary charisma. Then my wife stepped forward. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't dramatize. She presented the shell company, the fake fines, the surveillance, the body cam footage. Then came the best part. A councilman, gray-haired, sharp-eyed, leaned forward and asked, "Mrs. Owens, what exactly is your background?" She nodded once. Currently active within a U.S. Army Tier 1 Special Mission Unit. Clearance level classified. Over a decade in operational planning, intelligence, and international threat assessment. Silence. A beat. Then the oldest council member, retired Army, apparently, leaned in and smiled. "I thought I recognized you. Welcome home, ma'am." And that was it. Karen tried to argue. The council didn't let her. The audit was real. The bylaws? Invalid. The security force. Dissolved. Karen wasn't removed. She was dismantled. Publicly. Legally. Finally, by week's end, the HOA board disbanded. Residents stopped paying dues. And the signs? They stayed up. Even Captain Clipboard took his down. A month later, the neighborhood felt normal. Porch lights stayed on past 9 p.m. Kids rode their bikes without being tailed by HOA golf carts. People actually talked, not in whispers, but in full-volume neighborly conversation. My wife went back to jogging. Same route, same hoodie. Only now folks waved. Some even handed her bottled water, like she was a local legend she had quietly become. Karen? She vanished for a while. Rumors swirled, sabbatical, nervous breakdown, job application at a real estate firm one town over. We didn't care. The fake sirens were gone. The fine stopped. And a block party popped up in our cul-de-sac 2 Fridays later. Somebody grilled burgers. Someone else brought cornhole boards. My wife, she sipped green tea and nodded at the playlist. Another one bites the dust, played 3 times. She didn't gloat. Never does. "No, I told you so." Just checked the porch cam feed one last time before bed and said, "Looks like the lights are staying on." Then one morning, a black SUV rolled up. Unmarked. Polished. Official in a way that didn't need logos. A man stepped out, military haircut, tailored suit. He nodded at my wife. Didn't shake hands. Didn't need to. He handed her an envelope. She opened it. Read silently. I still, then turned to me, and I saw it. That look, the one she used to wear right before she boarded AC. 1:30 with half a plan and zero fear. "When do I leave?" she asked. "Transport's ready at dawn," the man replied. "You'll be briefed en route." That night, she packed light. No goodbyes. Just a note on my desk. "Karen was the warm-up. This is the mission." I watched her leave at sunrise. Calm, steady, precise. The new HOA president's name is Tom. Retired postal worker. His first bylaw? Don't be a jerk.